That right there is a Jaguar F-Pace, and what better way to talk about a British vehicle than by having some British weather. This cost a lot, so we hope you appreciate it. The Jaguar F-Pace falls into an interesting category. It's not quite a compact SUV, even though it's priced like one and runs in that mix of cars. This is a 35T Prestige model, and we'll explain what that means and walk around and look at bits and pieces of it next. There are a lot of automotive designers in the world, but few of them are known by name to industry insiders. Ian Collum, the design director at Jaguar, is one of them because the work he's done on the brand for the past couple of years, if not longer than that, has been extraordinary. He's developed a really streamlined look that gives every new Jaguar product a unique identity that matches everything else in the brand. What you notice when you're looking at the F-Pace's design is that it's kind of clutter-free. It's very simple, and it kind of has this elegance that also feels sporty. I keep coming to the phrase of like athletic elegance. Up front, you see a large front grille, a couple different openings beyond that. Not much of it is functional, but the grills themselves and the size of them speak to a sort of aggression that the front end of this vehicle wants to have. But a couple of the elements up here, like the headlights and the wheels, are things that you need to pay careful attention to because they stand out so much when the rest of the body is so clean. And as we get to these wheels, these are 19-inch wheels. You can go as high as 22 inches. We don't recommend it from F-Paces that we've tested because the bigger and heavier the wheel is, the worse the ride quality and comfort tends to get. The 19 seem to be a good match, though. You've got a good amount of tire sidewall. And as we step a little bit further, we can look at the general profile of the F-Pace, which is a really important element of the vehicle. This has to both convey a sense of luxury, a sense of sportiness, a sense of aggression, and that's difficult to do when you have to keep in mind that this needs to accommodate full-size adults and their cargo capacity. One of the big elements is this rear roof line. Generally, you want this to slope down. If that slopes down, it looks good, but you also have to keep in mind that, like, hey, humans need to sit back here and they have heads, but you don't want to interfere with the roof because that's uncomfortable. You need to be able to get in and out of the car without banging your head against the sill there. And as we work our way to the back, we can admire these taillights. These are just good-looking taillights. They don't need much explanation. Good design seldom does. But now, under the hood of this particular model is a V6. You have three different engine choices with the F-Pace. There's a 2-liter diesel, a 2-liter gas. Both of those are turbocharged and have confusing names. The diesel is called the 20D by Jaguar. The gasoline turbocharged 4-cylinder is a 2-liter as well, but it's called the 25T. And it gets even more confusing with the V6s because there's only one V6 engine. It's a 3-liter supercharged engine, and it has two different power levels, 340 or 380. This is the 340 version. Jaguar calls this version the 35T, and the high-powered 380 horsepower version the S. If you're having trouble following along, you're not alone. Regardless of which engine you choose, you get an 8-speed automatic and all-wheel drive standard on every F-Pace. Let's take a quick walkthrough through the interior of this Jaguar F-Pace. Now, the start-stop button is right here beneath the air conditioning controls, and you see the light pulsating before you turn the car on. It's supposed to make it seem like it has a heartbeat. Now, when the car turns on, the shifter rises out of the bottom of the center console, and this rotary shifter is okay, it's fine in use. It takes a little bit to get used to, especially during a 3-point turn on a crowded street, but it's something you will get acclimated with just through ownership and using. Probably the only downside with this rotary shifter is the amount of space that it takes up here in the center console. Behind the shifter, you've got your drive mode selector, and that's going to get you into your sporty settings, your eco settings, and all that. In the center console, you have two USB ports, an HDMI port, 12-volt port. Now, and behind the center console, you've got two more USB ports, another 12-volt port, and this model has heated seats. Backing up a bit though, this is a prestige trim, and that's not the highest end trim. This is probably more indicative of what most people are going to end up having in their F-Pace. The general feel of the material maybe isn't quite up to par with what we'd expect from like Audi and Mercedes-Benz of the world. You kind of sense when you touch everything, there's a lot of hard surfaces that don't feel cheap. They just maybe not feel to the standard that you might hope this vehicle were to reach. Other things though that are nice are definitely the displays. The gauge cluster looks really nice. It's crisp, it's clear, it's easy to read. It has a lot of customization inside of it. You can make it look different ways. You can have it show different information. It can actually take up the entire display, can be used as a navigation screen, which is kind of wild when you use it for the first time. I kind of just like having simple gauges. Maybe it's because I'm old-fashioned. The infotainment display is large, again, high resolution, looks really good. It reacts very quickly to gestures, swiping, pinching, zooming, and so on. And when we get into the navigation system here too, as I zoom way out and zoom way in, it's a system that you can see works generally well. One disappointment is this system does not support Apple CarPlay or Android Auto, and we like those systems a lot. This system is not quite as powerful, but does a decent job at giving you a lot of the same functionality. So we're kind of back and forth on whether it's worth the money or not. Now up top we have this massive sunroof that lets a lot of sun in. And it's surprising when you open it up for people who haven't been in this car before, and they're kind of like, wow, that's a really big sunroof. Another one of the curious things that happens in this Jaguar is that the window controls and the seat and door locks are kind of bisected. You have the seat memory and the door locks down here and the window controls up here. I've driven this car a couple times and always think that the window controls should be down here, but that's something you would just get used to over time. When you fire up the Jaguar F-Pace, you hear something that you may not expect from a compact SUV. There's a bit of engine noise. The F-Pace allows a bit more engine sound to come into the interior, and that reinforces the sort of sporty driving characteristics Jaguar wants to have as a brand. So this SUV accelerates adequately enough, more than adequately. The engine comes to life in a vocal manner, in a way that can get you down the road very quickly. It's something that does end up feeling sporty. Again, even though this vehicle is not intended to do that. And another thing that helps reinforce that is the tuning of the suspension and the steering. You want them to respond in ways that, you know, back up what that engine is barking out. And they do that, sometimes to the detriment. This is suspension, the way this rides can be a little bit firm. You feel a lot more of the road than you would get in more luxury-oriented vehicles. And this, you know, there's a few more bounces, there's a few more shuddering, there's a little bit more in terms of body control or body motions that you get because it is a little bit firmer. The upside to that, of course, is the ride is a bit more lively in terms of handling. It's a little bit more fun to drive this thing. So if you have a favorite on-ramp or a favorite section of road that you take on your commute, this brings out some of the more fun elements of driving that. Now we have various drive modes. I'm in the key up normal setting, but I can hit this button here and go to a dynamic setting, which makes the tachometer turn red and puts the transmission, it seems, in a more aggressive shift schedule, so it's more likely to hold revs as you drive. Now this is good if you're, you know, really want to enjoy a curvy road. And I gotta say, for an SUV as big as this one is, it actually does pretty well. I'm generally not a fan of the way V6 engines sound, but this one is on the nicer side of the spectrum, I gotta admit. You don't hear that supercharger, you just hear more of the exhaust sound than the engine sound itself. And they do a good job of piping that and that alone into the cabin. Now let's back it off and go into more of a cruising mode. And as we slow it back down and kind of just sort of admire some of the more general qualities of this vehicle has while you're driving. The transmission shifts very smoothly. It seems to engage the right gear pretty much when you want it to. And the low end of this V6 delivers enough torque at the bottom end to make it seem like it's able to accelerate pretty much regardless of what the engine speed is. This wheel feels really nice and precise. You know, there's not a lot of feel, but I have no doubts when I turn the wheel that I got it right or that I got it wrong. You do notice when you back off and start driving in a more conservative, you know, comfortable manner, a bit of the ride quality comes into play, and that's again a byproduct of having a sporty setup. You can get adaptive dampers on this on the F-Pace, and those, you know, have a range of settings that will soften for more comfortable and relaxed driving and firm up when you want the body control that you get from you know, firmer suspension. But overall, this Jaguar F-Pace is a very competent driving vehicle that's sure to satisfy anybody looking for a compact luxury SUV, that one that doesn't, you know, make you feel like you bought an appliance. This is a nicely balanced, easily controllable, you know, good-sized SUV overall. I like it. That's been a look at the Jaguar F-Pace. If you want to find out more information, be sure to visit Edmunds.com. If you want to see more videos, keep it tuned right here. We're gonna go find the guy who's on the fog machine and ask him to turn down.